I'm Johnathan Walton, and Mair Smyth scammed me out of almost $100,000. I first met Mair Smyth in May of 2013. I thought she was just this friendly, vivacious, funny, irreverent woman who I liked immediately. She was so nice to people, she offered to help everyone, and that really moved me. She wined and dined my husband and me at expensive restaurants. She had a strange accent that I couldn't place, but I soon learned that she was Irish. She told me that she had moved to Los Angeles from Ireland to get away from her family. She spoke about this 25 million euro inheritance, but her family was fighting her tooth and nail to prevent her from getting it. 14 months into my friendship with Mair, she got arrested. She was charged with stealing money from the travel agency she worked at. She told me that her family set her up to get her disinherited. Not only did I believe her, I loved her like a sister at this point. I paid $4,200 to bail her out of jail, and she paid me back the next day. And then she started telling me that her family's conspiring with the district attorney in Los Angeles, and they froze her bank accounts. So I start loaning her money to live on. And then she comes to me and says she needs $54,000 to make the case go away. So I let her charge my credit cards $50,000 and gave her another $4,000 in cash so she could get this case taken care of and get her inheritance. And then she got arrested again. And so I log on to the jail's website, and there it is, clear as day. I found out she's arrested for felony grand theft for stealing $200,000 from her employer. 4 years into our friendship, I discovered Mair was a con artist. 2 weeks later, I picked Mair up from jail and confronted her, and I recorded it.
You've been scamming us out of money this whole time.
I have not, Johnathan.
You have.
Where are you? Okay.
You're busted.
Okay.
So from here on in, we're not friends.
After going to police, I discover a really sickening thing that Mair was up to, scamming people. Mair had created a fake GoFundMe page to raise money for cystic fibrosis, and she scammed dozens of victims out of almost $17,000. The truth of the matter is, Mair did have a daughter who died of cystic fibrosis, but this daughter was taken from her as a baby, was not in her life. So Mair was raising money in the name of her daughter. I called the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. They never saw a dime. That was just a scam.
Well, Johnathan, when you look back at that and hear yourself saying it, what do you think?
Part of me wants to punch myself
Yeah.
for falling for that, but that's the thing, you know. It was a dumb thing I did, but I learned the hard way. Con artists don't outsmart you, they outfeel you. I got sucked in, and I believed it. Never for a second did I think she's invented all these online accounts to sell me a story.
Right. Well, she had a lot of different looks, and Johnathan claims these images from his blog show just some of Mair's different looks over the years. And if you look at the two on the right, you would never know that was the same person.
I look at all of them, and they look like completely different women to me. She had a total of 23 aliases.
She was Marianne Andel, Marianne E. Andel, Marianne Elizabeth Andel, then Barry and E. Welch, Mair Smyth, Marianne Smith, Marianne E. Smith, Marianne E. Andel, Mair Welch. I mean, it just goes on. Yeah. And you put together a pretty interesting timeline of this woman, which shows some pretty chilling things. I mean, as far back as when she was 11 years old, she tricks a friend into entering a stranger's house, and this is according to a friend of hers. Then it jumps to 1994. She was arrested for grand theft and forgery in Florida. Now, you, of course, don't know this at the time. This is constructed after the fact.
Right. This is after I interviewed dozens of victims, spoke to law enforcement across the country, kind of after I got conned and confronted her and, you know, fought back.
And we say in Texas, for every rat you see, there's 50 you don't. These are just the things where she's been caught.
Yes.
In 97, arrested for shoplifting and passing bad checks in Tennessee. 2000, online relationship with a man in Northern Ireland while living in Tennessee. 01, moves to Northern Ireland and gets married. Now, between 01 and 09, it appears now that she scammed 26 victims in Northern Ireland out of $500,000.
My name's Heather, and I was conned by my life coach, Mair. I met Mair in 2015. I was going through a difficult time and I was searching for a life coach. I had a reading with Mair. I was blown away by the reading. She really did give good advice. After about 4 months, Mair started offering different cleanses. She would make them herself. She would put different herbs, rose petals. I probably spent at least $3,000. One of the craziest things I fell for, she convinced me to buy bull's that it would heal my negative energy. It was $450. I feel like I'm part of a cult. Another thing that happened, she told me my ex was taking life coaching classes from her. She convinced me to also sign up for these, and it was $1,900 for 8 sessions. She also started to make me feel like she was gonna tell all the things I've told her to my ex. I definitely felt like Mair was blackmailing me. One year I got a large tax return. I started noticing money being taken out. Her company name was on the withdrawals. When I confronted Mair, she knew nothing about it. I ended up calling PayPal, disputing the charges. 2 hours later, I get a screaming Mair, "What the did you do? You shut down my PayPal account." I ended up giving Mair $1,400 to unlock her PayPal account. Overall, I gave Mair $16,000. Mair called me one day, hysterically crying, telling me that she needed me to go to Santa Barbara with her to see her ex. We drove to Santa Barbara. It turns out she had a dead chicken in the car, in a cooler in the back seat. I had to take the chicken leg and bury it near a planter by his house. It just hit me that she was just a fake, and I knew I had to get away from her.
My name is Tess, and I was conned by Mair Smyth. I met her in 2014. My former business partner called me up very excited that he met this amazing psychic by the name of Mair Smyth. It was like meeting a long-lost friend. She was very personable and charismatic, and she really was wanting to help so much the nonprofit that I run. Mair told me often from the very beginning that she had a list of A-list celebrities that were her clients in her psychic business. She convinced me that she was really dear friends with Jennifer Aniston. In fact, she sent me copies of emails that they had together. So coming up to the Golden Globes, she invited me to go with her and Jennifer, and that I would be Mair's +1 to go to the Golden Globes. On the day of the Golden Globes, my dress was ready and Mair canceled on me. Looking back, there were a couple of red flags. There was a couple of instances when she went into the hospital for treatment of cancer, and she sent me a picture from her hospital bed. And I instantly asked, "Where are you?" And she immediately cut me off and yelled, "I'll text you when I get home. Don't come here." Who pretends like they have cancer? That to me is cruel. And then one day she yelled at me and said, "I am done with you." And she hung up. And I never talked to her again. Mair literally disappeared from my life forever. So it makes me wonder, where did she come from? Or is she just a genuine psychopath?
Now, joining us virtually is multimedia journalist Rian Lowndes from WAGM in Presque Isle, Maine. What do you know about her?
My colleague Brian and I showed up in separate cars. He was in a plain car, I was in a Martineuse vehicle. So we arrived and we parked right across the street from her supposed residence. As we walked up to the residence, we parked our car there, we walked up, and a neighbor came out to greet us. So this residence is a string of townhomes attached to each other. So the neighbors were all there. One approached us as we were still in the car and asked us what we were there for. She pointed us in the direction of the apartment or house we were looking for, and we showed her the photo of Mair, or who we believe to be Mair, and mentioned some of the aliases that Johnathan said before. She shook her head, said she didn't recognize it, and walked back into her building. So we went down to the house that she had indicated, to the right door, and we knocked, and there was no response. But at this point, we had a couple of neighbors gathered outside the building, and one of them called out to us and said, you know, she took off. She saw you guys arrive. The neighbors that we did speak to, like I said, knew about Johnathan's podcast and had heard of Mair before.
These are professionals, and they really do pick their victims based on their vulnerabilities and cracks in the door where they see a need that they can exploit. And that's how they get into their lives, right?
This is really typical in these kind of cases. It's typically somebody who's very personable, makes connections to somebody else who wants a connection with another person. Maybe something's going on with their life, even their health, or in a church setting, and they get their foot in the door, and that trust builds, and then the wallet opens.
What do these people say when you finally get them in the crosshairs in court?
You know, it's nothing personal to Johnathan or Heather or Tess. It becomes an end game. It has nothing to do with you personally.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree, yeah.
And what
She's like a shark. I thought you were going to insult us, but you didn't.
No. And what they're doing actually is they're probably running multiple cons at the same time. So the moment, Heather, when you're not with her, she's running it for something else.
Yeah.
Some of them will pay off, some of them won't, like Tess's. They typically want to look for somebody who's willing to follow instructions. We hear Tess was not. Each time she asked Tess to do little things, she disappointed her. And so it was time to move on to another con game.
You know, I'd like you to comment on this because you can make it real for people. We always talk about these people don't feel remorse. They don't have empathy for other people. But what I mean is when she's raising money using her dead daughter, there's no conscience. They don't feel the way the other people feel. And when you ultimately get them in the courtroom, when they ultimately are caught and have to face somebody they took money from, they really don't give a damn, do they, about what they've done to these people. They don't really feel bad about it.
They'll become actors or actresses of which they will say that they feel bad, they feel remorse, but I would guess if I'm betting $1, Johnathan, you didn't get restitution. Heather, you didn't get restitution.
I got a judgment for restitution, but no, I haven't got a dime.
Right, and so what happens is, unfortunately, our system doesn't take white-collar crime as serious.
Right.
The maximum she could get is 5. And ask yourself, would you do, if you don't have money, would you do 2 years of prison for $1 million?
Do you have any prior relationship with anyone who's here in court today?
My mother.
And can you please point out the person who you're identifying as your mother? Does your mother have any family relations from Ireland? And does she have any access to a trust or an inheritance based in either Ireland or Northern Ireland?
No.
Do you know where your mother was born?
Maine, Bangor.
As you sit here today, do you have strong feelings about your mother one way or the other?
Yes.
And what are those feelings?
I think that she's a very troubled person who has used her intelligence malevolently. And the things that she has been accused of, I'm absolutely disgusted by.
People sometimes say, what is it about me that I attract or keep choosing these people? Don't say that to yourself and don't believe that. They are hunters. They prey upon people and they just found you and preyed upon you. And if something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
She's been called Queen of the Con.
She had a lot of different looks.
23 aliases.
Her victims speak out.
She convinced me that she was friends with Jennifer Aniston.
I confided in her my darkest secrets.
New Dr. Phil. Check your local listings.
Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.